When we think about perfume today, we think glamour, right? Luxury, maybe a specific memory just popped into your head, triggered by a familiar scent. But what if I told you this whole glamorous industry? It wasn't born out of a desire for style. Nope. It was born to cover up an absolutely unimaginable stench. Seriously. The story of how we got from there to here, it's wild and probably not at all what you're thinking.
And this quote, a promise in a bottle, man, that just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It perfectly captures what perfume is now. It's not just some nice smelling liquid, it's an idea, right? An aspiration. It's the message we're sending out to the world, and maybe even to ourselves.
That's exactly it. Perfume is kind of like the first step onto that high fashion catwalk for the rest of us. It's a little piece of an exclusive world that you can actually own. It's like a tiny spritz of haute couture that gives you that feeling of, yeah, status and sophistication. But was it always about that? Oh, not even close. The glitzy world of perfume we know today has some surprisingly, well, foul and functional origins. So come on, let's peel back those fragrant layers and see what history was so desperately trying to cover up.
Okay, welcome to the age of stench. Yeah, you heard me right. This is the not-so-aromatic past. Before perfume was ever about attraction, it was all about repulsion. I'm talking about repelling the just overwhelming stinks of everyday life. And this is where things get really interesting. Look at this disconnect. On one hand, you have this image of the glittering court of Louis XIV at Versailles. We picture total opulence. But the reality? The reality was grimy. Think about the magnificent palace of Versailles. They called it the perfumed court. It had these incredible halls, gilded bedrooms, and, famously, no bathrooms. Not a single one.
So what does that mean? It means perfume's first and most important job was simply to mask the stench. This wasn't about a subtle, alluring scent. No way. This was a heavy-duty tool for, olfactory survival. It was about covering up everything, human odors, environmental odors, in a time before plumbing or, regular bathing was a thing.
Just try to imagine this for a second. We're in 19th century Paris. The streets are narrow, there's no air circulation. The roads are just filled with this cocktail of dust, mud, and garbage. Sewers, barely any. People are literally just dumping waste into streams or throwing the contents of their chamber pots right out the window. In that kind of environment, a heavy splash of fragrance wasn't a luxury. People actually thought it was therapeutic, like a way to disinfect the very air they were breathing. So, how in the world did we get from that to the massive global industry we have today? Well, the big shift really begins with one of history's most powerful figures, a man who had a legendary obsession with fragrance. The number is 60. 60! Let that sink in for a second. Napoleon reportedly went through 60 half-gallon bottles of eau de cologne every single month. I mean, he didn't just wear it. He practically consumed it. He poured in his bathwater, used it as a mouthwash. He'd even put it on a sugar cube and eat it. This obsession, well, it was about to change everything. And here's the thing. His personal passion had huge public consequences. For one, he basically democratized fragrance. He helped spread things like perfume soaps from the fancy courts to the brand new bourgeoisie. He also professionalized the whole industry. He broke up the old guilds, these stuffy, exclusive clubs that decided who could make perfume. And that let perfumers actually create and innovate on their own. And maybe most importantly, he pushed for scientific research in chemistry, which set the stage for the entire modern perfume world.
Of course, you can't talk about Napoleon and perfume without talking about his first wife, Josephine. It's a great story. See, she loved these really heavy animalic scents, think musk, civet, things that come from animals, and Napoleon absolutely hated them. So when he eventually dismissed her, she got the ultimate revenge. She supposedly drenched the walls of her rooms in these perfumes so intensely that people claimed you could still smell it 70 years later. Talk about an epic olfactory battle, right?
So that push for chemistry that Napoleon started, it wasn't just some abstract idea. It directly kicked off a revolution that would totally transform perfume, from just a craft, based on whatever you could find in nature, into a real art form that was powered by science. And man, things changed fast. I mean, look at this timeline. In the 1830s, chemists were just figuring out how to isolate fragrant molecules from plants. Pretty cool. But then, a little while later, they learned how to create those same scents from stuff like fossil materials. But the real game changer, the big one, was when they started inventing entirely new artificial scents, molecules that you literally cannot find anywhere in nature. And all of this leads up to 1889 and the launch of a perfume called Jicky. This was the first truly modern perfume. Why? Not because it smelled like a rose, but because it blended natural and synthetic ingredients to create an abstract feeling and emotion. And just like that, the entire idea of what a perfumer is completely changed. They weren't just people trying to copy the smell of a flower anymore. Nope. They were now part chemist, part poet. They were artists, composing these abstract symphonies for your nose, inventing scents that, as one poet put it, actually surpassed nature itself. Okay, so we've got the art, we've got the science. But there was one more piece of the puzzle, one more revolution needed to get us to the perfume industry we know today. And that was the marriage between fragrance and high fashion. So the pioneer here was a fashion designer named Paul Poirier. Back in 1911, he was the first couturier to think, hey, I should sell a fragrance that goes with my clothes. But the real game changer? That was Coco Chanel, about a decade later. With Chanel No. 5, she took that idea and just perfected it. She wasn't just selling a perfume, she was selling the entire idea of Chanel, the whole brand identity, right there in that little bottle. She created this unbreakable link between the clothes you wear and the way you smell. And after Chanel? Well, the floodgates just opened. All of a sudden, every major fashion house had to have its own signature scent. You see names you probably recognize. Worth, Patou, Balmain, Nina Ricci, they all jumped in, cementing perfume as this absolutely essential part of a fashion designer's vision. Okay, so we've covered the wild history. Now let's get into the language. How do the pros actually talk about this stuff? Because let's be honest, trying to describe a smell, it's really, really hard. It's an invisible art.
So, to get everyone on the same page, the industry came up with these fragrance families. It's like a shared vocabulary. And here are the big ones. You've got floral, pretty obvious. Oriental, which is all about rich stuff like vanilla and musk. Woody, citrus, you get the idea. Now, the weird one on the list is Chypre. That's actually a specific family named after a famous perfume from 1917. It's all about this specific contrast between a bright, citrusy opening and a deep, mossy base. But this whole system, it just gives us a way to talk about a perfume's overall character.
But here's the other thing. A perfume isn't just one smell. It changes on your skin, it evolves over time, and we describe that using something called the perfume pyramid. So when you first spray it, what you smell are the top notes. They're made of light molecules, so they hit you first, but they also evaporate really fast. Then, as those fade away, the middle notes, or the heart of the fragrance, start to come through. And finally, what lingers for hours are the bottom notes, the heavy molecules like resins and woods that stick around the longest and give the scent its foundation. And that really brings us full circle, doesn't it? Knowing about the families and the pyramid, that's the science part. But the way perfumes are actually sold to us, that's pure emotion. Think about it. They don't sell you on the list of ingredients. They sell you an aspiration. They're not talking to our strengths. They're speaking to our vulnerabilities, to what we wish we could be. So the next time you pick up a bottle of perfume, I want you to just pause for a second. Think about its incredible journey, all the way from masking the filth of 19th century Paris, through Napoleon's crazy obsession and a full-blown chemical revolution, right into that fancy designer bottle. And then ask yourself, what am I really buying here? Is it just a scent? Or is it the story, the promise in the bottle?